In the bustling city of Lagos, for children, Kola, Emeka, Aisha, and Bizi grew up as inseparable friends. Their bond, forged on the streets of Ikoyi, was their anchor through school and into university, where they each chose a different path. Kola for technology, Emeka for finance, Aisha for marketing, and Bizi for architecture. Through years of hard work, they each rose to become a billionaire CEO, building empires from the ground up. Their success never came between them. Instead, it brought them closer. Kola married Aisha, and Emeka married Bizi, cementing their friendships into a family. Despite their busy lives, they maintained a sacred weekly tradition: dinner at one another's home. These gatherings were a sanctuary where they celebrated their triumphs, supported each other through challenges, and reflected on a lifetime of friendship. Their story became a Lagos legend, a testament to a bond that proved to be more valuable than any fortune. Hello, bestie. Welcome. Please stay with me as I unfold this interesting romantic story. If you enjoy the story, please support us by subscribing to this channel and hit the notification button for more. Thank you. Grab your popcorn, sit back, relax, and enjoy this story. The sun beat down on the tarred street of Ikoyi, baking the air with the scent of roasted plantain and car exhaust. This was the world of four inseparable friends: Kola, Emeka, Aisha, and Bizi. Their street was a universe unto itself, a vibrant, chaotic symphony of life where their laughter was a constant, joyous refrain. Kola, with his perpetually curious eyes, was often found tinkering with a broken radio or sketching intricate diagrams in the dirt. Even as a child, his mind was a whirlwind of circuits and possibilities. He was the group's dreamer, the one who believed they could build anything, fix anything, and one day change the world with a brilliant idea. Emeka was their quiet anchor, the one with an uncanny sense of order. He would carefully divide their snacks into equal portions, settle disputes with a logical calm, and always knew the best strategies for their games of street football. He was the group's natural leader, a boy who saw the world not just as it was, but as a series of problems to be solved. Aisha was a burst of energy, her braids flying as she ran. She was the storyteller, her voice alive with tales of heroes and mythical creatures. She could turn a simple stick into a magical wand and a dusty corner into a bustling marketplace. She saw beauty and stories everywhere, and she had an infectious enthusiasm that could lift anyone's spirits. Bizi was the observer. While the others ran and shouted, she would sit quietly, her small hands shaping intricate patterns with leaves and stones. She was the one who noticed the way the light hit a building, the pattern of a spider's web, and the secret shapes in the clouds. Bizi was the artist, already seeing the world in lines and forms that others missed. Their afternoons were a blur of activity. One moment, they were playing hopscotch on a chalk-drawn grid. The next, they were huddled together, whispering about the future. "I'll build an engine that runs on sunlight," Kola declared one day, his eyes wide with a certainty that made it sound real. "And I'll be the one who finds the money to build it," Emeka replied, his tone serious and confident. Aisha twirled a stick, her imagination already running wild. "I'll make sure everyone in Nigeria knows about it." Bizi, from her quiet corner, simply pointed to the tallest building they could see. "I'll be the one to design a building that's even taller," she said softly, a small smile on her face. They were just children with big dreams, but as the sun set over the Lagos skyline, casting long shadows of their small forms, their bond was already something unbreakable. A foundation laid on shared laughter, fierce loyalty, and the unshakable belief that they would one day make their mark on the city they loved. Their sanctuary was a massive old mango tree on the corner of their street. Its branches spread wide like protective arms, casting a deep, cool shade that offered a welcome reprieve from the Lagos heat. It was here, perched on its thick, gnarled roots, that the four friends often came to dream. One particularly sweltering afternoon, they were gathered under its boughs, sharing a single Fanta bottle between them. The conversation, as it often did, turned to the future. "I'm going to create something that everyone in Nigeria will use on their phones," Kola declared, his voice full of the same intensity he had when trying to fix a broken toy. A new type of app. Something to make life faster, easier. He envisioned a world where technology wasn't just a luxury, but a seamless part of daily life. Emeka, ever the pragmatist, nodded thoughtfully. And I'll be the one to fund your company, he said. I'm going to be a big banker, the kind who decides which businesses get to change the world. I'll know how money moves and I'll be in the middle of it all, making the important choices. Aisha, listening intently, clapped her hands together. You'll need me for that, she exclaimed. I'm going to own the biggest advertising company. I'll make sure everyone wants to use your app, Kola, and knows how powerful you are, Emeka. I'll create the stories that make people believe. Beezy, who had been quietly carving her initials into a piece of bark, looked up. Her voice was soft but firm. I don't just want to tell stories. I want to build them. I'm going to be an architect. I'll design buildings that are beautiful and strong. I want to see something I created standing tall in this city. She gestured with her chin towards the distant, hazy skyline. The air grew quiet as they each considered the weight of their words. These were not childish fantasies. They were serious promises, whispered into the leaves of their old tree. With a shared glance, they reached for each other, their hands stacking together. Kola's on top, then Emeka's, followed by Aisha's, and finally Beezy's, their small hands sealing the pact. We will do it all, Kola said, his voice a resolute whisper. And we'll always be friends, Beezy added. No matter what. They broke apart, their bond feeling stronger and more real than ever. A promise etched not just into the bark of the tree, but into the very heart of their shared destiny. The primary school, with its peeling green walls and the constant, rhythmic sound of the bell, was where their friendly rivalry truly took shape. In the classroom, they were competitors, each pushing the others to excel in their respective fields of brilliance. Yet, unlike other rivalries, theirs was a unique, four-way pact of encouragement. Kola and Emeka were the academic titans of their class. The teacher's weekly announcement of the top scores was always a moment of nervous anticipation for them. Kola would ace the science tests, his mind a steel trap for logical formulas and diagrams. He could explain the life cycle of a butterfly or the components of a simple circuit with an ease that baffled his peers. But Emeka was a force of nature in mathematics and social studies. He could rattle off historical dates and solve complex arithmetic problems in his head, a trait that often left Kola shaking his head in admiration. I got a 98 on the math test, Emeka would say with a proud, subtle smirk. I got a 99 on the science quiz, Kola would immediately counter, a playful glint in his eye. Meanwhile, Aisha and Beezy's competition was in a different arena. Aisha's strength was in the fluidity of words and ideas. Her essays were vibrant and imaginative, painting pictures with prose that captivated the teacher and her classmates. She would win the school's poetry competition year after year, her confidence growing with each victory. Beezy, however, spoke in lines and colors. Her quiet focus in art class produced stunningly detailed drawings. While Aisha's words told a story, Beezy's drawings of the school garden or the old baobab tree told a narrative of their own. One year, Aisha's essay on my favorite place was read aloud to the entire school. But a few weeks later, Beezy's drawing of that same place won the inter-school art competition, her detailed strokes a quiet form of triumph. But this rivalry never spilled into animosity. After the school bell rang, the competition was left behind. On their walk home, Kola would patiently explain a difficult science concept to Aisha, who had struggled to grasp it. In return, she would help him with the vocabulary for his next creative writing assignment. Beezy would show Emeka how to use perspective in a drawing, and Emeka would quiz her on the multiplication tables she found so tedious. Their rivalry was a fire that forged their individual strengths, and their friendship was the cool water that kept them from burning out. By the time they reached home, their minds were not on who had a higher score, but on the games they would play and the stories they would tell. A team once again, united by their shared journey. Secondary school felt like a different world entirely. The familiar, comforting walls of their primary school were replaced by a sprawling campus with multiple blocks, bustling corridors filled with older, taller students, and a new, stricter set of rules. The friends, once the big fish in a small pond, were now small fish in a vast, overwhelming ocean. Navigating this new reality was a test, but their friendship remained the unwavering anchor in the turbulent waters. Kola, with his mind already far ahead, found his tribe in the science club. He was often hunched over a workbench, surrounded by equally passionate students discussing physics and algorithms. He thrived on the advanced curriculum, but the new, more competitive atmosphere was a stark contrast to the familiar comfort of his primary school classroom. Emeka, with his natural leadership and calm demeanor, gravitated towards the debate team. He quickly became a standout, his logical arguments and polished delivery earning him a reputation among his peers and teachers. He found his place in a world of rules and structure, but the intense social dynamics of the new school were a constant puzzle he had to solve. Aisha's vivacious personality found a new canvas in the literary and drama clubs. She reveled in the opportunity to write for the school newsletter and act in plays, her stories and performances captivating a new, wider audience. She quickly made new friends, and for a while it felt like her world was expanding exponentially, sometimes leaving her old friends in the dust. Beezy, ever the quiet observer, found solace in the art room. While her friends were joining clubs and making grand speeches, she would spend her lunch breaks meticulously sketching, turning the new campus and its students into subjects for her art. The large, intimidating school was less of a social maze and more of a visual feast for her, a place of new lines, shapes, and perspectives to capture. Their individual paths diverged, but they made a silent pact to always meet. Their designated spot was a quiet bench under a large flamboyant tree near the football field. Here, they would share stories about their new friends, complain about the stricter teachers, and discuss the new things they were learning. It was their one constant in a world that was changing rapidly. One day, Aisha arrived late, brimming with a story about a new play she was cast in. She talked animatedly, her new friends' names slipping into the conversation. Kola, Emeka, and Beezy listened, but a subtle distance had crept in. Beezy, ever observant, noticed a shift in the group's dynamic. That night, she told them, "We have new friends now, and that's good. But we need to remember that this is our family." The others agreed. The next day, they made a renewed effort to spend time together, to listen more and talk less about their separate lives. They realized that while they were growing into new, separate individuals, their core friendship was the foundation they all needed to stand tall in this intimidating new world. The final year of secondary school was a whirlwind of anxiety and expectation. The carefree afternoons of childhood had been replaced by a new, more serious rhythm. The rustle of turning pages, the late-night glow of a desk lamp, and the constant, low-level hum of stress. A-level exams loomed like a looming storm on the horizon, and the friends were in the eye of it all, supporting each other through the final academic gauntlet. Their old hangout spots were now their study nooks. Kola, surrounded by textbooks on physics and further mathematics, would take breaks by tinkering with a small solar-powered fan he was trying to build, a simple therapeutic escape from the abstract theories of the curriculum. He would patiently explain a difficult physics concept to Emeka, his hands moving to illustrate the principles with spare parts from his desk. Emeka, with his meticulous nature, had his subjects, economics and accounting, neatly organized into a flawless schedule. He was a master of efficiency, and while he was confident in his abilities, the pressure to get into a top-tier business program was a heavy weight. He, in turn, would quiz Aisha on historical dates and events, his mind a steel trap for facts that she often found tedious. Aisha's mind, however, thrived on the poetry and prose of her literature studies. She could analyze a novel with an emotional depth that none of the others could match. Yet, the structured, impersonal nature of the exams filled her with dread. She would find solace in writing her own short stories and poems during breaks, and would help Beezy untangle the complex metaphors and themes in their English comprehension texts. Beezy's greatest strength was her art, which she poured into her technical drawing and design projects. Her talent was undeniable, but the other subjects were a constant source of anxiety. She found a unique way to help the group, however. With her artistic skill, she created beautiful, intricate study guides for them all, turning dense notes on biology or history into a visual feast of diagrams and color-coded information. But the exams were only half the battle. The other half was the looming decision of where to go to university. One evening, as they shared a meal on Cola's veranda, the conversation turned to their applications. "I've applied to a tech university in Abuja," Cola said, his voice a mix of excitement and apprehension. "I'm heading to a business school in Ghana. If I get in," Emeka replied, a flicker of worry in his usually calm eyes. "And I'm thinking of a communications program in the UK." Aisha added, her voice quieter than usual. I want to study here in Lagos," Bizi admitted, her eyes cast down. "There's a great architecture program. It's too far to go anywhere else." A silence fell over the group. This was it, the moment their paths truly began to diverge. The reality of their impending separation was a stark contrast to their shared life so far. But as they looked at each other, they made a silent promise, not with a handshake or a formal pledge, but with the shared understanding in their eyes. They would conquer their exams, chase their dreams, and no matter how far apart they went, their friendship would be the one constant they could always count on. The sound of screeching tires and the clamor of the Lagos airport and bus stations marked the first true separation for the Ikoyi Four. The tight-knit unit, which had navigated childhood and adolescence as one, was now splintering into four distinct paths. The farewells were filled with a mix of tearful hugs, brave smiles, and promises to stay in touch, a solemn pledge to a bond they knew was about to be tested by geography. Kola found himself in the sprawling city of Abuja, a place of order and wide, clean streets that felt both refreshing and sterile compared to the vibrant chaos of Lagos. His computer science program was intellectually stimulating, a playground for his innovative mind. But in the quiet of his hostel room, after a long day of lectures, the silence felt heavy. He would often look out his window at the unfamiliar skyline, a pang of homesickness hitting him as he thought of his friends and the bustling street they grew up on. Thousands of kilometers away, Emeka was in Ghana, a country that felt both familiar and foreign. The academic environment of his business school was fiercely competitive, and he thrived on the challenge. Yet, the initial cultural shock, the different slang, and the absence of his core group of friends made the first few weeks a lonely ordeal. He learned to project an image of confidence during the day but would retreat to his room at night, the silence a constant reminder of how far he was from home. For Aisha, the distance was even more profound. London was a world away, a gray sky, cold air, and an anonymity that was both thrilling and terrifying. Her marketing and communications program was a creative outlet, but the sheer size of the city and the time difference made her feel adrift. She would spend her early mornings on video calls with her family, the blurry screen a poor substitute for a real hug, and the long, dark nights filled with a longing for the familiar voices of her friends. Bizi, ironically, was the only one who remained in Lagos. Yet, she felt the absence of the others more acutely than anyone. The city that was once their shared playground now felt a little emptier. The architecture program was demanding, pushing her to her creative limits, but without her friends to share the victories and defeats, the triumphs felt hollow. She would walk past their old hangouts, a ghost of a memory haunting her, a different kind of loneliness settling in, one born not of physical distance, but of emotional absence. Their lifeline was the long, late-night phone calls. They would find a way to connect, to bridge the thousands of miles with their voices. These were not just conversations. They were a lifeline, a mix of shared inside jokes, stories about new friends, complaints about professors, and reassurances that they were all in this together. They were building new lives, but their past, and their future, was still inextricably tied to those late-night calls. They were far apart, but they were not broken. Their bond, forged in the streets of Ikoyi, was proving to be strong enough to withstand the distance. Kola's first real taste of the professional world wasn't in a sterile university lab, but in the heart of a buzzing tech startup in Abuja. The office was an open-plan space, a symphony of clicking keyboards, hushed conversations, and the constant hum of servers. The air crackled with a frenetic energy of innovation and ambition, a stark contrast to the theoretical world of his university courses. He was assigned a challenging project to optimize a section of the company's mobile payment app. The task was far more complex than anything he had tackled before. His superior, a senior developer named Kunnel, was demanding and brilliant, with little patience for mistakes. Kola spent his days staring at lines of code that seemed to mock his academic achievements. He felt the weight of the pressure, the fear of failing to meet the high standards. He was a small cog in a massive machine, and the experience was both thrilling and terrifying. That night, on their weekly group call, he vented his frustrations. "I feel like I'm drowning," he said, his voice laced with exhaustion. "The code is a mess. Kunnel is a genius, but he's so demanding, and I'm starting to think I'm not cut out for this." Emeka, with his calm and logical mind, was the first to respond. "He's not a genius, he's a boss. And you're not drowning, you're learning. See it as a system. What's the goal of the system? What are the inputs and outputs? Figure that out and you'll find your place." Aisha chimed in with her usual creative flair. "Don't just look at the code, Kola. Think about the people who will use it. What do they need? What will make them happy? It's not just logic, it's about making a connection." Beezy, ever the steady presence, offered a simpler, more grounding perspective. "Just breathe, Kola. You've been brilliant at everything your whole life. This is just a new kind of puzzle. Take it one line at a time, one day at a time." Their words were a lifeline. The next morning, Kola approached the project with a new perspective. He stopped looking at the code as an unfixable mess and started to see it as a puzzle. He remembered Aisha's advice and started thinking about the user experience. With a fresh eye, he spotted a glaring inefficiency, a small but critical flaw in the system. He spent the next few days tirelessly rewriting a section of the code, applying a novel solution he'd been working on in his free time. When he presented his work to Kunnel, his superior's stoic expression slowly turned to a nod of approval, followed by a rare, genuine smile. "This is good, Kola," Kunnel said. "Very good. You've got a future here." Kola walked out of the office that day with a new sense of accomplishment. The path to success was challenging, yes, but he realized that he wasn't walking it alone. He had his friends, a network of support that was more valuable than any line of code. He was ready for the next challenge. The atmosphere in Emeka's finance classroom in Ghana was electric, a crucible of ambition and intellect. Unlike Kola's tech world, this was a place of polished presentations, sharp suits, and intense debates over market trends and corporate mergers. The students were all brilliant, but Emeka possessed a different kind of brilliance, a calm, intuitive grasp of numbers and strategy that made the complex world of finance feel like a puzzle he was born to solve. During a high-stakes case study on a struggling multinational corporation, the classroom was a whirlwind of frantic calculations and panicked discussions. The professor, a revered industry veteran known for his no-nonsense approach, challenged them to devise a rescue plan. While other students were bogged down in endless spreadsheets, Emeka saw a different picture. He wasn't just looking at the data, he was seeing the story behind it. He identified a subtle shift in consumer behavior that others had missed and proposed a bold, counterintuitive strategy that involved not just cost-cutting, but a complete brand repositioning. When it was his turn to present, he spoke with a quiet confidence that filled the room. His plan was clear, logical, and backed by a deep understanding of human psychology, not just financial models. The professor, who had been leaning back with a skeptical expression, slowly sat up, a flicker of genuine interest in his eyes. He peppered Emeka with rapid-fire questions, trying to poke holes in his logic, but Emeka answered each one with a calm and reasoned response. After class, the professor called him aside. "Most people your age see the trees," he said, his voice low and serious. "They can calculate the height of each one. But you saw the forest. You understood the ecosystem. That's rare, Emeka. That's the kind of thinking we need in this industry." The recognition felt like a powerful validation. That night, on their group call, he casually mentioned the professor's praise. "He said something nice about my presentation," Emeka said, downplaying the significance. But his friends knew better. Aisha let out a triumphant cheer. "I knew it. You've always been the smartest one here," Emeka, Kola was impressed. You're going to be a force, man. I can already see it. Beezy, ever the thoughtful one, said simply, I'm not surprised. You've always seen things other people miss. The professor's words and his friend's unwavering belief gave Emeka a new sense of purpose. He was no longer just a student chasing a degree. He was on a path to becoming a leader, a decision-maker, and he knew in his heart that his journey was just beginning. Aisha's first office was a cramped, sun-drenched corner in a co-working space in Lekki. The walls were adorned with mood boards and sketches, and the air hummed with the entrepreneurial spirit of a young woman with a vision as big as the city itself. She had left her comfortable job to start her own marketing firm, a bold move that was met with a mix of awe and concern from her friends. She had a small but talented team, and their energy was boundless, but they desperately needed a big break to get on the map. That break came in the form of a major cosmetics company looking to relaunch a legacy brand. The brief was simple but challenging. Make a decades-old product relevant to a new, younger generation. Aisha knew this was her chance. She was up against well-established firms with vast resources and a track record of success. The odds were heavily stacked against her. While the other firms prepared pitches filled with market research graphs and predictable slogans, Aisha's approach was different. She remembered her childhood passion for storytelling. Her pitch wasn't a presentation. It was a narrative. She created a video showing not just the product, but a young woman's journey of self-discovery, with the cosmetics brand as an integral, but not central, part of her story. It was emotional, raw, and authentic. She wasn't selling a product. She was selling a feeling, an experience. The day of the pitch, she walked into a gleaming Ikoyi boardroom, her heart pounding. The executives, a panel of stoic, seasoned professionals, listened politely as the larger firms presented their safe, data-driven campaigns. When it was Aisha's turn, she didn't lead with numbers. She started with a question. What if we didn't tell them what to buy? What if we told them a story they couldn't help but be a part of? As her video played, the silence in the room was absolute. They watched the story unfold, a collective change in their demeanor. The initial skepticism gave way to genuine interest, and by the end, a quiet buzz of excitement filled the room. After a round of intense questions, the CEO of the cosmetics company leaned forward. This is different, he said, a slow smile spreading across his face. This is what we've been looking for. Later that evening, on their group call, Aisha was almost speechless. We got it, she managed to say, the words catching in her throat. A wave of cheers and shouts erupted from the phone. I knew you would, Kola shouted. That's how you do it, you make them feel it. Emeka, ever the strategist, was impressed. Aisha, you just disrupted the entire model. That's a masterclass in business. Beezy's voice was soft, but her words were full of pride. You've been telling stories since you were a little girl. You just found a bigger stage for them. I'm so proud of you. The victory was more than a new client. It was the validation of a dream. Aisha knew, in that moment, that she was not just a storyteller, but a creative force to be reckoned with. Her little marketing firm was about to make a very big name for itself. Beezy's architectural practice was a small, quiet studio tucked away in a corner of Victoria Island. It was a space that reflected her personality. Meticulously organized, filled with the sharp scent of ink and paper, and covered with blueprints and intricate models of buildings that existed only in her mind. While her friends were making headlines in Abuja, Ghana, and London, Beezy was quietly building her portfolio, waiting for a chance to put her artistic vision to the ultimate test. The loneliness of being the only one of the four in Lagos was a persistent hum in the background, a silent motivator. That chance came with a design competition for a new skyscraper in the heart of the city's financial district. The project was a massive undertaking, a commission that could make a young architect's career. Beezy was up against established, globally recognized firms, and she was, by all accounts, the underdog. The other firms presented sleek, modernist designs, towers of glass and steel that could have stood in any major city in the world. Beezy's approach was different. She didn't want to just build another generic skyscraper. She wanted to build a love letter to Lagos. Her design, which she had meticulously crafted over sleepless nights, was inspired by the city's unique rhythm. The building's facade would feature a dynamic pattern of concrete and glass, reminiscent of intricate African textiles and the rhythmic flow of the Lagos Lagoon. The interior spaces were designed to capture the city's vibrant energy and community, with open-air gardens and communal areas that celebrated Nigerian life. It was a building that told a story, a structure with a soul. The day of the presentation, Beezy walked into the boardroom feeling a mix of dread and fierce determination. She stood before a panel of developers and city officials, her handcrafted model sitting on the table like a piece of sculpture. She spoke not of square footage and financial projections, but of culture, of history, and of a building that could stand as a symbol of Lagos's future. Her quiet passion and the profound originality of her design captivated them. While the other firms had presented buildings, Beezy had presented a legacy. After the pitch, the lead developer, a man known for his cold pragmatism, looked from her to her model, a slow smile spreading across his face. "This isn't just a building, young lady," he said, his voice full of genuine admiration. "This is art. This is Lagos." On their next group call, Beezy delivered the news with a characteristic understatement. "I won the competition," she said simply. The silence that followed was broken by a collective cheer that reverberated across continents. "I knew it. That's my architect," Emeka shouted. Kola was impressed. "Beezy, the engineering on that design is incredible. You're going to build a new landmark for us." Aisha, her voice full of pride, said, "You told the city's story through a building. It's the most beautiful pitch I've ever heard. You deserve this." The victory was more than a contract. It was the validation of her artistic vision. Beezy knew, as she looked at her blueprint of the future, that her name was no longer just Beezy. It was now tied to a landmark that would stand tall against the Lagos sky, a testament to her quiet strength and unwavering dedication. Kola's first venture wasn't born in a glossy office with a view, but in the chaotic, thrilling confines of his small apartment in Lagos. The space was a testament to his ambition. Monitors stacked high, a tangle of wires snaking across the floor, and the air thick with the smell of instant coffee and the hum of his servers. He had left his job, armed with a few years of experience and a single brilliant idea: a mobile payment app that was simpler, faster, and more secure than anything else on the Nigerian market. He named it SwiftPay. The launch was not the triumphant, instant success he had envisioned. The first few weeks were a relentless battle against skepticism and technical hurdles. Nigerians were wary of new fintech platforms, and without a major backer, the banks were hesitant to partner with him. He was a young man with a big idea, but no one seemed to believe he could pull it off. The app, for all its potential, was riddled with bugs. A server would crash in the middle of a transaction, a new user would struggle with the interface, and every day felt like a step backward. On a desperate group call, he vented his frustrations. "No one trusts it," he said, his voice heavy with defeat. "They'd rather use the old, slow systems than give a chance to a new guy." Aisha, listening from her new office, immediately saw the problem from a marketing perspective. "You're selling a product, Kola, but you're not telling a story. We need to build trust. I can help you with the branding. We'll make people feel like this app is theirs, that it's the future." Emeka, ever the financial strategist, offered a different kind of help. "You need to change your approach with the banks. Don't go in there selling a product. Go in selling a partnership. I know how to talk to those people. Let me help you with your pitch. We'll show them this isn't a threat, it's an opportunity." Beezy, from her quiet architectural studio, offered a calming perspective. "You can't build a skyscraper in a day, Kola. You lay the foundation first. This is your foundation. It's supposed to be hard. Every great building starts with a few cracks." Their words were a bomb. With Aisha's help, he created a new marketing campaign centered on community and reliability. With Emeka's guidance, he rewrote his business proposal and secured a meeting with a smaller, more forward-thinking bank. The technical problems, however, were still his alone to solve. He spent countless nights, fueled by sheer willpower, fixing bugs and optimizing his code, one line at a time. Then a small victory came. A handful of local street vendors and small business owners started to use SwiftPay, drawn in by its simplicity and the trust built by Aisha's new campaign. The transactions were small, but they were happening. The app, which once felt like a pipe dream, was now a tangible reality for a small but growing user base. It wasn't a landslide victory, but for Kola, it was everything. He knew the long road was still ahead, but he was no longer alone, and his dream was finally taking flight. Emeka had returned to Lagos after his studies in Ghana, securing a position as a junior analyst at one of the city's most prestigious investment banks. The office was a world of hushed tones, polished mahogany, and the constant flicker of data on trading screens. It was a fiercely competitive environment where every decision was a high-stakes gamble, and every junior employee was vying for the attention of the senior partners. A major decision loomed over the firm: what to do with a struggling manufacturing company in their portfolio. The company was hemorrhaging money, and the senior partners were in a heated debate. The conventional wisdom was to cut their losses and sell the company off. It was a safe, predictable move, but it would result in a significant loss. Emeka was tasked with creating a report on the company's financials, a simple exercise that was supposed to be a formality. But as he pored over the data, something didn't add up. The company's core product was still in high demand, but their distribution and marketing were outdated and inefficient. While his colleagues focused on the negative profit margins, Emeka saw a different story. He saw a diamond in the rough, a company with immense potential, buried under layers of mismanagement. He spent days meticulously crafting a different kind of report, not one that recommended a sale, but one that proposed a bold, high-stakes restructuring and rebranding. He presented his findings to a closed-door meeting of the senior partners, his voice calm and confident despite the intimidating atmosphere. He outlined a plan to inject capital, overhaul the company's leadership, and, most importantly, completely reimagine their market strategy. It was a high-risk, high-reward move that flew in the face of all the other recommendations. The room was silent as he finished, the senior partners exchanging skeptical glances. After a tense deliberation, the bank's managing director, a formidable woman known for her keen eye for talent, made a decision. "We're going with Emeka's plan," she announced. The room buzzed with a mix of shock and unease. The decision was a masterstroke. With the bank's investment and Emeka's strategic guidance, the manufacturing company underwent a dramatic transformation. The old leadership was replaced, a new marketing strategy, devised with a little behind-the-scenes help from Aisha, revitalized their brand, and within 2 years, the company was not only profitable but had become a market leader. The bank's return on investment was staggering. Emeka was rewarded with a significant promotion and a new, corner office with a panoramic view of the Lagos skyline. On their weekly call, he shared the news with his friends in his usual understated way. "The plan worked," he said with a rare, satisfied smile. "The company is thriving. The bank promoted me." Kola was in awe. "You didn't just see the numbers, you saw the future. You risked everything and it paid off." Aisha cheered. "That's my guy. We're coming to celebrate in that new office." Beezy, from her quiet studio, offered a simple, heartfelt sentiment that meant the most. "I always knew you would be the one to see the big picture, Emeka." Looking out at the sprawling city, Emeka felt a profound sense of accomplishment. He was no longer just an analyst. He was a rising star, a financial force to be reckoned with. His journey had begun in a classroom in Ghana, but it was here, in the heart of Lagos, that his dream was truly taking shape. The minutes following Aisha's daring pitch felt like an eternity. She and her small, fiercely loyal team were back in their sun-drenched co-working space, the air thick with a cocktail of nervous energy and cautious hope. While the other firms had left the boardroom with a clear sense of the outcome, Aisha's presentation had been so unconventional, so different, that the client's reaction was impossible to read. The silence stretched on, filled only by the low hum of the air conditioning. Then her phone rang. It was the lead client. Aisha took a deep breath and answered, the rest of her team leaning in, their eyes fixed on her. The conversation was not a simple yes, but a negotiation. The client was impressed, but the brand's legacy was a serious responsibility, and they needed to be sure. Aisha, drawing on a well of confidence she didn't know she had, held her ground. She spoke with a conviction that came from a deep belief in her creative vision. After a tense 10 minutes, she hung up, a slow, triumphant smile spreading across her face. "We got it," she said, her voice shaking with relief and exhilaration. A wave of cheers and shouts erupted. Her team, a small group of young, ambitious creatives, embraced her in a group hug. This was their victory as much as it was hers. They had all poured their hearts and souls into that pitch, and now, the fruit of their labor was a contract that would put their little firm on the map. They popped open a bottle of cheap, sparkling wine, laughing and toasting to a future that, just a few hours ago, had seemed uncertain. Later that night, on their group call, Aisha was still buzzing. She told the story, not just of the pitch, but of the nail-biting wait, the difficult negotiation, and the joyous celebration with her team. Kola was impressed by her tenacity. "You didn't just get the client, you showed them you're a force to be reckoned with. You stood your ground." Emeka, with his financial mind, said, "That's how it's done. You proved the value of your ideas, not just your hard work." Beezy offered a quiet but heartfelt thought. "You always told the best stories, Aisha. Now you get to tell them on a big stage and people are finally listening." As she looked around her now bustling office, filled with the warmth of her team's shared success, Aisha realized that this was just the beginning. The pitch had been the spark, but the fire had just been lit. Her marketing firm was no longer just an idea. It was a reality, a creative powerhouse that was ready to take on the world. Winning the competition to design a landmark Lego skyscraper was a dream come true for Beezy, but the euphoria was quickly replaced by a daunting reality. The immense amount of work required to bring the blueprint to life. The first few weeks were a blur of meetings with city officials, engineers, and investors. She was a young, relatively unknown architect, and there was a palpable sense of doubt in some of the boardrooms. The challenge was no longer just artistic. It was practical, financial, and logistical. She had to prove she wasn't just a dreamer, but a capable leader. Beezy, however, was not alone. The project became a shared endeavor, a testament to the four friends' combined genius. The weekly group calls, once a way to share individual stories, now became collaborative project meetings. Kola, with his tech expertise, was her go-to for all things innovation. He helped her design the building's smart infrastructure, from energy-efficient systems to an intuitive, app-based security and maintenance platform. "We'll build it to be a city within a city," he said, his voice full of excitement. A truly modern landmark. Emeka, with his financial acumen, became her unofficial chief financial officer. He helped her navigate the complex world of budgets, contracts, and investor relations. He helped her present the project in terms of long-term value, not just cost, earning her the respect of the more skeptical partners. "This building is a long-term investment," he'd tell her, "and your design is a massive part of its value." Aisha, with her storytelling prowess, helped Beezy shape the building's public image. They collaborated on a PR strategy that focused on the building's cultural significance, its ties to Lagos's history and future. They created a compelling narrative that made the public feel a sense of ownership even before the first brick was laid. "We're not just building a skyscraper," Aisha insisted, "we're building a symbol of Lagosian pride." One evening, Beezy laid out the massive blueprint on her office floor. Kola, Aisha, and Emeka were on video call, their faces a mosaic of support and collaboration. As they discussed various aspects of the design, a new piece of software, a creative marketing slogan, a budget adjustment, Beezy felt a powerful surge of emotion. This was no longer just her project. It was a culmination of their childhood dreams, a tangible representation of their shared success. The skyscraper, their skyscraper, was more than just a building. It was a monument to their enduring friendship. The setting for their celebratory dinner was the opulent private dining room of a new, high-end restaurant in Victoria Island, a world away from the dusty streets of their childhood. They sat at a polished mahogany table, the soft glow of a chandelier illuminating their faces. They were no longer the dreaming children of Ikoyi. They were now four titans of their respective industries, their names whispered with respect in boardrooms and beyond. The conversation flowed easily, a mix of business triumphs and nostalgic anecdotes. Kola spoke of the initial bug-ridden version of his app, SwiftPay, and how he had almost given up. If it wasn't for Aisha's branding and Emika's help with the banks, he admitted, it would still be a concept on a whiteboard. Emika, with a rare, open smile, recounted the high-stakes decision that had launched his career. I remember the senior partners thought I was crazy, but I also remember Kola's advice to see the system, Aisha's to see the people, and Beezy's to just breathe. All of that was in that report. Aisha, now the head of a formidable marketing empire, talked about her first major pitch. I walked into that room terrified, but I felt like I had all of you in my corner. I knew I wasn't just pitching for myself. I was pitching for our dreams. Beezy, who had recently laid the foundation for her landmark skyscraper, listened intently. I still look at that site and feel overwhelmed. But then I remember sitting under the mango tree, drawing buildings in the dirt. Feels like the same dream, just on a much bigger scale. The weight of their shared journey settled over the table. They had climbed their respective mountains not alone, but as a unit, a support system that had proven more valuable than any business degree or startup capital. They had all, in their own ways, fulfilled the promises they made under the mango tree. Kola, with a glass of champagne in hand, stood up. The others followed his lead. He raised his glass, a wide smile on his face. To us, he said, his voice full of emotion. To the kids from Ikoyi who promised to change the world. We've done it. We've built our empires. To the four of us, to the Ikoyi billionaires. The others clinked their glasses, a sound of triumphant celebration. But the title wasn't about the money. It was a recognition of their enduring friendship, a testament to a bond that was stronger than any bank account and more valuable than any fortune. As they toasted, they weren't just celebrating their success. They were celebrating a shared dream that had become a beautiful, stunning reality. The sprawling rooftop terrace of a new Victoria Island restaurant was buzzing with the low hum of conversation and the subtle clink of glasses. But in a quiet corner, away from the crowd, Kola and Aisha were lost in a world of their own. They were celebrating a successful launch for Kola's latest app, a project that Aisha's firm had helped brand. The synergy between them had always been undeniable, a blend of Kola's logic and Aisha's creative spark. But tonight, there was a new energy in the air. They were reminiscing about their childhood, laughing about their A-level exam anxieties, and the absurdities of their early careers. Aisha's laugh, a sound Kola had known his entire life, now resonated with a new warmth. He noticed the way the city lights reflected in her eyes, the effortless way she articulated her ideas, and a feeling he had long suppressed began to surface. He had always seen her as his best friend, his creative foil. But looking at her now, a successful, confident woman who had a hand in building his empire, he saw her in a completely new light. Aisha felt it too. For years, Kola had been her intellectual partner, the person she could always go to for a clear-headed opinion. But tonight, their usual banter felt different. A shared glance across the table lingered a moment too long. A comfortable silence stretched into a meaningful one. When he reached across to move a stray strand of hair from her face, his touch sent a jolt of electricity through her. It was a simple, platonic gesture he had made countless times before, but this time, it felt like a silent confession. "We've been through so much together," Kola said, his voice softer than usual. "From drawing plans in the dirt to building real empires. I don't think I could have done any of it without you. And I wouldn't have wanted to," Aisha replied, her heart pounding a new rhythm. "You've always been my constant, Kola, my anchor." In that moment, under the vast, star-dusted Lego sky, they both understood. The deep, platonic love they had always shared was blossoming into something more profound, something that had always been there, just below the surface. They had built their careers, conquered their industries, and now, they were on the cusp of building something new together, a shared life. They had found their way back to each other, not as friends who had grown up, but as two people who had grown into something meant to be. The journey of two friends was ending, and a beautiful new story was about to begin. The love story of Emeka and Beezy was a quiet masterpiece, built not on fiery passion or a sudden spark, but on a foundation of mutual respect, shared purpose, and a profound, unwavering understanding of one another. While Kola and Aisha's connection was a brilliant, dynamic flame, Emeka and Beezy's was a deep, steady warmth that had grown over years of unwavering support. Their romance blossomed in the quiet moments between their demanding careers. It was in the late-night hours in Beezy's architectural studio, where Emeka would sit quietly as she worked, offering not advice, but a calming presence. It was in the hushed conversations they had on walks through Lekki, where Emeka would talk about the pressures of his financial world and Beezy would listen, her quiet observations cutting through the noise and bringing him a sense of clarity. They saw each other not just as friends, but as the one person in their lives who truly understood them. Emeka saw the world as a series of systems to be optimized, and Beezy was the only person who saw the heart and soul in those systems. Beezy saw the world in lines and forms, and Emeka was the only person who saw the profound logic and strength in her designs. The realization of their love didn't come in a dramatic confession, but in a quiet, shared moment that felt as inevitable as the sunrise. One evening, after a long and exhausting week, they sat on a balcony overlooking the city Beezy was helping to reshape. They didn't speak for a long time, the silence between them more comforting than any conversation could ever be. In that moment of shared peace, they both understood that their individual lives were now irrevocably intertwined. They were each other's calm, their sanctuary from the high-pressure worlds they had conquered. Their wedding was a beautiful reflection of their love, an elegant, intimate affair attended by their closest family and, of course, Kola and Aisha. It wasn't a spectacle, but a heartfelt celebration of a love that was as deep and enduring as the city Beezy was helping to build. As they stood together, two quiet forces in a bustling world, they knew they had found not just a partner, but a profound peace they had been searching for their entire lives. The Lagos Lagoon, a vast, shimmering expanse that had been a silent witness to their lives, was the backdrop for Kola's meticulously planned proposal. He had reserved a private, secluded spot on a deck overlooking the water, decorated with simple, elegant lanterns that cast a warm, golden glow. A gentle breeze, scented with the salty air of the Atlantic, rustled through the palm trees. It was a scene of quiet intimacy, a world away from the bustling city they had conquered. He had told Aisha it was a celebration for a new venture he was working on, and she, ever supportive, had arrived in a flowing emerald dress that seemed to capture the city lights on the water. They talked and laughed, the conversation flowing effortlessly as it always had. They reminisced about their childhood dares, their university days, and the triumphant moments of their respective careers. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in strokes of orange and purple, Kola took her hand. His voice, usually so confident and measured, was now soft and full of emotion. "Do you remember when we were kids under that mango tree?" he asked, his thumb gently caressing her knuckles. "We promised to change the world, to build our empires. I've done it, Aisha. I've built my company. I have everything I ever dreamed of." He paused, looking deep into her eyes. "But every step of the way you were right there beside me. My partner, my creative, my anchor." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. As he got down on one knee, the lights of the distant city glittered behind him like a million promises. "My empire is not complete without you," he said, the words a heartfelt confession. "You've been a part of my story since the very beginning. Let's finish the story together. Aisha, will you marry me?" Aisha's eyes welled up with tears of pure, unadulterated joy. She wasn't just hearing a proposal. She was hearing a declaration of a shared destiny. She saw not just a ring, but the culmination of a lifetime of a shared journey. With a joyous laugh and a tearful, resounding yes, she pulled him to his feet and wrapped her arms around him, their lips meeting in a kiss that was a long-awaited beginning. From a hidden vantage point, a quiet cheer erupted. Emeka and Beezy, having been in on the secret all along, emerged from behind a cluster of trees, their faces beaming with joy. They had witnessed not just a proposal, but the beautiful, inevitable culmination of a love story they had all been a part of since the very beginning. The home Kola and Aisha moved into was more than just a magnificent building. It was a testament to their love and a stunning representation of their friendship. Designed by Beezy, the house was a masterpiece of modern architecture, a perfect blend of Kola's love for technology and Aisha's vibrant creative spirit. It stood in a serene, private estate, a sanctuary from the relentless pace of their professional lives. From the moment they stepped inside, they were awestruck. Beezy had worked with them for months, turning their vision into a breathtaking reality. The house was a smart home, a symphony of seamless technology orchestrated by Kola. The lights, music, and climate were all controlled by an intuitive app. The walls were a canvas for Aisha's art collection, the spacious, sun-drenched rooms flowing effortlessly into one another. The most special space was Aisha's private art studio, a bright room with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out onto a beautifully landscaped garden. One evening, after unpacking the last of the boxes, Kola and Aisha stood in the middle of their living room, their hands intertwined. "She really outdid herself," Aisha whispered, her voice full of awe. "It's perfect. Feels like us." Kola nodded, his eyes scanning the elegant lines of the house. "It is perfect." Beezy put a piece of herself into every single detail. It's a home built on a friendship. Soon after they moved in, Emeka and Beezy came for dinner. Emeka was impressed by the seamless technology, and Beezy, walking through the finished rooms, had a look of profound satisfaction on her face. Her design, once a sketch on paper, had now become a living, breathing space for the two people she loved most in the world. As they all sat down for their first dinner in the new home, they shared a toast. They were no longer just friends, but family, bound by a shared history and a future they were all building together. Their new home was a physical manifestation of their success, but more importantly, it was a sanctuary built on the unshakable foundation of their enduring friendship. The house Emeka and Beezy moved into was a perfect reflection of their quiet, profound love story, a peaceful sanctuary from the relentless demands of their high-stakes careers. Nestled in a serene estate, the home was Beezy's magnum opus, a design she had poured her heart into with Emeka as her thoughtful collaborator. Unlike Kola and Aisha's vibrant, tech-filled house, theirs was a study in elegant minimalism and tranquil beauty. The design philosophy was simple: create a refuge. The house was built with clean, strong lines, natural materials like polished wood and smooth concrete, and expansive windows that blurred the line between the indoor and outdoor spaces. The focus was on natural light and a sense of calm. A beautiful, central courtyard garden, filled with lush, indigenous plants, was the heart of the home, a serene oasis in the middle of a bustling city. It was Beezy's touch, a reminder of her love for art and nature. Emeka's influence was in the thoughtful order of the space. Every room served a clear purpose, and the magnificent study, with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Lagos skyline, was his personal retreat. It was a space to think, to plan, and to find peace after a long day of high-pressure decisions. One evening, they sat in the courtyard, the gentle sound of water from a small fountain providing a peaceful soundtrack to the evening. Emeka, who rarely showed emotion, simply took Beezy's hand. "This is perfect," he said, his voice full of sincere gratitude. "This isn't just a house. Peace, it's everything." Beezy smiled, her heart full. "We built it together," she said. "A place to come home to, a place to be us." When Kola and Aisha visited for dinner, they were immediately struck by the home's distinct, calming energy. Aisha, ever the creative, was inspired by the artful use of space and light. "This is so you too," she said, marveling at the effortless beauty. Kola, the tech innovator, appreciated the architectural integrity and the seamless design, recognizing the meticulous thought that had gone into every detail. As the two couples sat around the dining table, their laughter and conversations filling the quiet space, Emeka and Beezy felt a profound sense of gratitude. They had built a beautiful, successful life, and at the heart of it all was their home, a sanctuary they had designed together, a beautiful, physical representation of their shared life. The first of their weekly dinner rotations began at Kola and Aisha's stunning new home. The air, filled with the aroma of Aisha's home-cooked meal, was a stark contrast to the sterile boardrooms and bustling construction sites they all frequented. This was their new sanctuary, a scheduled return to the foundation of their friendship. The conversation flowed with a comfortable familiarity, yet with a new depth. They were no longer just friends sharing stories. They were two couples, their lives and successes now irrevocably intertwined. Emeka and Kola discussed the financial projections for Beezy's skyscraper, their conversations a seamless blend of business acumen and friendly banter. Aisha and Beezy, over a shared bottle of wine, talked about the design of a new marketing campaign and the artful use of color in a new building project, their creative minds sparking off one another. This weekly dinner was more than just a tradition. It was their lifeline. In their fast-paced, high-stakes lives, this was the one constant, a time to shed the weight of their CEO titles and simply be Kola, Emeka, Aisha, and Beezy. They talked about their professional triumphs and failures, but also about their new lives as couples, sharing laughter, advice, and a profound sense of belonging. During a quiet moment, as they sat on the terrace overlooking the city, Emeka raised his glass. "To us," he said, his voice full of warmth, "to this tradition, to the fact that no matter how big our empires get, we'll always have this." The others clinked their glasses, their smiles reflecting the shared sentiment. They had gone from making promises under a mango tree to building empires, and now they were building a life together. They understood that their individual success, while immense, was simply a part of a much bigger, more beautiful story, the story of their enduring friendship. As the first of many dinners came to a close, they all knew that this simple tradition was the most valuable part of their new, incredible lives. The dinner rotation landed them at Emeka and Beezy's home, a sanctuary of calm and elegance. The evening began with the usual celebratory news. Aisha's firm had just landed a massive new international client, a victory that filled the room with joyous chatter. Beezy's skyscraper had passed a critical engineering inspection, its steel frame now a towering symbol on the Lagos skyline. Emeka had just closed a high-stakes merger, and Kola's app had secured another round of funding. But as the night wore on, the conversation took a more serious turn. Emeka, ever the calm strategist, brought up a difficult truth. "The market is shifting," he said, his tone pensive. "We're facing a potential downturn. Could affect all of us, from construction projects to tech investments. We need to prepare." The room grew quiet, the shared successes of the evening giving way to a shared concern. This was the true nature of their weekly dinners, a space where they could not only celebrate triumphs but also confront challenges together. Kola, with a frown of concentration, immediately started thinking of solutions. "If a downturn hits, we'll need to double down on user trust," he said, tapping into his tech expertise. "I can help Aisha's firm create campaigns that focus on brand loyalty, not just new users. We need to be seen as a pillar of stability." Aisha, always the creative problem solver, offered a different perspective. "And we need to tell new stories, stories that give people hope. We can pivot our campaigns to show resilience and community, to remind people what's truly important." Beezy, from her quiet corner, offered a calming, architectural wisdom. "A building is designed to withstand storms," she said, her voice steady. "It has to be flexible. We all built our businesses to be strong, and we can all support each other through this. We are our greatest asset." The conversation continued late into the night, their individual expertise weaving together into a formidable strategy. They were no longer just a group of friends. They were a collective force, a living, breathing think tank dedicated to each other's success. As the evening came to a close, the market downturn still felt like a looming threat, but the fear had been replaced by a quiet, determined confidence. They knew that their friendship, forged in the streets of Ikoyi, was stronger than any financial crisis, and together, they were ready for anything. The years had flown by like the seasons in Lagos. The four friends, now in the prime of their lives, were no longer just CEOs. They were parents, their homes filled with the joyful noise of children. The weekly dinner tradition, which had started as a way to stay connected, had become the unshakable foundation of their family life. One evening, at a dinner hosted by Kola and Aisha, the two couples sat around a large table, their children playing in a nearby room. The conversation was a warm tapestry of shared memories. They looked at each other and saw not just the successful, powerful adults they had become, but the earnest children they once were. "Do you remember the mango tree?" Kola asked, a nostalgic smile on his face. "We thought we were so clever, making our grand promises. I didn't know it then, but you guys were the best part of the plan." Aisha laughed, her hand resting on Kola's. "We had the audacity to believe we could change the world from one small street in Ikoyi. And somehow we did." Beezy, now a world-renowned architect, smiled thoughtfully. "We didn't just build our empires alone. We built them together. Every line I drew, every building I designed, was a part of our shared story. It was a promise to all of us." Emeka, the quiet force of the group, raised his glass. "Our real legacy isn't the wealth, the companies, or the buildings. It's this," he said, gesturing around the room at their intertwined families. "The loyalty, the friendship, that's the real empire we built." As their children ran into the room, their faces bright with laughter, the four friends knew their story was far from over. It was a beautiful, enduring narrative that would continue through their kids. They would pass on the values they had learned under that old mango tree: the power of friendship, the strength of hard work, and the unwavering belief that with loyalty, anything is possible. The story of the Ikoyi Four was not just a Lagos legend. It was a testament to a bond that was stronger than any fortune and richer than any success.